Good day, everyone, especially to our instructor in ED203B, which is Ma'am Ana Kaluskusin. Good day, Ma'am. To my classmates and to my fellow reporters, good day. Before I present to you my respective topics, allow me to introduce my name. My name is Cyril Kitay Hamosmos, and I'm currently enrolling my Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English 2 in Negros Oriental State University, Seattle Campus. So I am at Group 3, and we are assigned to report to you the Unit 3, which is the forms of learner-centered classroom organization, procedures, and physical structure. That is the role of discipline in learner-centered classroom. So without further ado, let's do the video. So why is it important to have a discipline inside a classroom? It's a very good question, right? Simply because discipline in the classroom helps the students stay focused on their academics. Over time, it teaches them how to focus in other ways or be versatile in their own way. A disciplined student keep this work as a top of priority. The goal of using discipline, the word discipline, is to teach students boundaries and limits to help them achieve personal and academic life goals. And without discipline, learning cannot be accomplished. Or in meaning to say, it is a whole mess if without discipline. So if the students constantly disrupt the teacher, so therefore the other class are affected. As a future educator, I will make sure that discipline is present inside the classroom. The role of discipline in learner-centered classroom is under of the following. First, we have collaborative classrooms. Second, logical consequences. Third, consistent application. Fourth, student-specific. Fifth, time for resolution. And last is the calm spaces. So later on, we will give the definition and what is the importance of this. So now, let us proceed to the first under of the role of discipline in learner-centered classroom, which is the collaborative classroom. What is collaborative classroom? Collaborative classroom, it is a classroom where students actively work with each other, and when an educator is an active group learning environment. So meaning to say that this is a place where students or learners are actively cooperate, work with the assignment, and collaborate with each other. So it refers to teaching circumstances that emphasize group education. So as an educator, we assigned each student to have a group, then they are actively work with each other. And I think it's a very good way to have a strong and whole family in the classroom. So in a collaborative classroom, students are encouraged to think critically, troubleshoot problems, and offer feedback to peers. So normally, when we are in a classroom, we can't deny the fact that we are having a challenges, a troubleshoot problems. So as a learner, as an educator, as an instructor, we have the responsibility to make the students actively participate in a certain work or a certain assignment. So as collaborative, it promotes deductive reasoning and cooperation among students and teachers. So it is not just about a student or a learner, but also for a teacher, for his or her to have an active mind and reasoning that gives us a tool to prepare students for in the workforce. Again, what is collaborative classroom class? Very good. It is a classroom where students actively participate in a certain work. Very good. So don't you know that there are the characteristics of collaborative classroom? Yes. First is that shared knowledge among teachers and students. Meaning to say, in traditional classroom, since our elementary years, even we were in kinder, we all know that teacher is an information giver of knowledge that flows only one way from a teacher and a student. So the second characteristic of a collaborative classroom is we have shared authority among teachers and students. So normally in a collaborative classroom, teachers share the authority with students in a very specific ways. So mostly, the teacher is largely, if not exclusively, responsible for setting goals, designing learning tasks, and assessing what is learned. Therefore, students assess what they learned in the classroom. So this way, it encourages students use their own knowledge, ensure that they have learned many strategies, treat each other respectively, and focus on high levels of understanding. This characteristic helps students listen to diverse opinions, support knowledge claims with evidence, engage in critical and creative thinking, and participate in open and meaningful dialogue. So for example, if a student have just read a chapter on colonial America and required to prepare a product on the topic. So as a traditional teacher might ask all students to write an essay or in a way that they can explain the content in a chapter of colonial America. That is shared authority among teachers and students. So let us now proceed to the third characteristic of a collaborative classroom, that is teachers as mediators. So what is that? As knowledge and authority are shared among teachers and students. So teacher can learn to a student can learn to a teacher. So it's a cycle of education. So this way, it can help to have a connection about a new information to their experiences and have a learning materials in other areas. So now proceed to the last characteristic of a collaborative classroom, which is the heterogeneous groupings of students. So what does it mean? So the perspectives, the experiences, the backgrounds of all students are important to consider for enriching learning in the classroom. Meaning to say, as a teacher, you must have a fair treatment of all your students. So as learning beyond the classroom increasingly requires understanding diverse perspectives, it is essential to provide students opportunities to do this in a multiple contexts in schools. So now let us proceed to the role of discipline in learner-centered classroom, which is the logical consequences. So, in your own opinion, what is logical consequences? Logical consequences, it is to decide what kind of consequence would create a helpful learning experience that might encourage children to choose responsible cooperation. So as a teacher, normally in a classroom, we can't avoid fight inside the classroom. So as a teacher, you have to decide what kind of consequences would you create in learning experiences or a helpful learning experience that might encourage children to stop that or to choose to become responsible cooperation. We have here the 3 R's and an H of logical consequences. We have the related, the respectful, the reasonable, and helpful. So respectful. Respect is conveyed through words and nonverbal gestures, right? So as a teacher, you use a normal tone of voice. Avoid sarcasm, speak directly and quietly to the student. So second, we have relevant. So when we say relevant, a consequence needs to be logically related or relevant to the student's actions. If what is the cause of a fight inside the classroom, it must be related, or the consequence must be related. So realistic, there is no reasonable follow-through action expected by the student. So the consequence should be something that a teacher and a student can follow through on. So the teacher is prepared to follow and implement rules and regulations that this fight will not be happen again. So now let us now proceed to consistent application. So consistent application means that you make sure that you are consistent with your rules, your consequences in the classroom. So students succeed in predictable way or in just environment. For example, they get angry if they are not treated well or fairly or acknowledged in the classroom. So we know already that three role of discipline in learning-centered classroom. So now let us talk about student-specific. So when we say student-specific, it means that typically refers to form of instruction that, for example, give students opportunities to lead learning activities, participate more actively in discussions, design their own learning projects, explore topics that interest them, and generally contribute to the design of their own course. We are in a stage of time for resolution. When we say time for resolution, it develops routine for resolving conflicts in your class. So we already tackle about logical consequence. So this way or this stage is that you resolve conflicts in the class. So now let us now focus on the last role of discipline in learner-centered classroom, which is calm spaces. We talk about logical consequence, conflicts. So now it is a stage to stay calm, to stay relaxed in this stage. Spaces, it is an area where student can go to relax, refocus, and recenter. So when we say relax, it is where they can go to play volleyball, basketball, their whatever it takes. So we must have a time for that, for them to relax. It's not just about heavy assignments, reports, activities, but also as a teacher, you must give them a time to relax, to refocus on themselves, and recenter to their family. You must give a time space for that. Okay? So, before I end my presentation, can you determine what are the role of discipline in learning center in the classroom? We have the collaborative classroom, the logical consequences, the consistent application, student-specific, time for resolution, and calm spaces. So ato aning if wala pa dyan po mo kasabot, ato ning ging one by one pagsapan. So when we say collaborative classroom, we must have a collaboration between the teachers and the students. So when we say logical consequences, meaning to say you must have a relationship with the consequences to the root of fight or an action of a student. So your consequences must be related to the student's actions. You must have a fair treatment. Okay? When we say consistent application, you must have a consistent consequences and rules inside the classroom. So when we say student specific, you must have the time to give a time for them to shine like a student. You must have opportunity for give them the opportunity to lead and to design the learning materials that is exist or be part of a certain topic. So when we say time for resolution, is that you have a time to resolve a conflict that is happening inside the classroom. We have to call off, we need to forgive, we need to listen both sides, and calm spaces is that we need to give time to the students to relax, to be calm. It's not just about being overloaded. So do you have any question before I end my presentation? If none, I will give you a piece of an advice. So discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. What does it mean? So discipline, it is a bridge or a connection between the goals and the accomplishment of a student, of a teacher. Okay? So this is by Jim Rock. This is Cyril Kitay Hamosmos. And thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned a lot for this topic.